What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. Tony and Chris are back, but of equal or more importance is our guest for the day, Mr. Ian Fraser. Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be with you, boys. It seems
Now,
odd
a
that we're
lot
not standing outside an ice cream store in Southern California
we
picking all
should
sorts off
we
the
should
menu.
be at Handles. Yeah, we should be at Handles.
I
That's
know we should.
uh
I mean, it is
maybe
wild. Like in the grand scheme of the golf universe, you and I aren't
Yeah,
too far apart. Me in upstate New York, you in the Toronto area, and yet we seem to run into each other in Southern California more than anywhere
every
else.
single time
SoCal and
outside.
Florida.
Yeah, it's insane. I know. Good to see you, boys. Really good to see you.
yeah, always good to see you and good to catch up. Now, most of our viewers know who you are, but for those who don't, why don't you just tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into this, how long you've been doing this, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, my name's Ian Fraser. I've been in the club fitting world for about probably 20, 22 years now. As a young 18-year-old, entered into the PGA program over in the UK. Fell in love with golf age 16, turned pro when I was 18. Just absolutely, fell in love with the game. I really thought I was going to pursue a life in soccer and football and kind of go down that route. But my dad took me to a golf course when we were on a holiday in Portugal, fell in love with the game, completely got the bug and fell in love with the game after that. Was working for my dad. He's got a construction company back in Scotland. Heard from someone that was in golf that one of the local golf courses had an assistant pro that had been caught stealing and just been fired. Called my mum instantly. I'm like, bring my golf clothes. I want you to drive me to the golf shop. I hear their assistant pro just get fired. I would love that job. I've always wanted to work at that golf course. Went down there. The guy gave me a VHS of the PJ program. He said, well, listen, watch this. If this sounds like what you'd like to do, I'd love to hire you. So that was probably maybe 99, 90, about 99. And joined the PJ program at the Belfry, went through that. During all the modules that you learn while in the PJ program, the equipment technology modules as it was called, the guy who's taking the class was telling us and educating us about different club heads and shafts, and he was telling me about Fujikarma, which is a company that makes golf shafts, and I've known a little bit about it at the time. I'm like, this isn't good. I mean, these people really don't know what they're talking about when it comes to golf equipment. And then we would, the PGA, they would tell us, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a head pro? Do you want to be do you want to be a player? What do you want to be? And I fell in love with equipment around that time. And I said, no, I want to fit people to golf clubs. And the whole group, our whole year group, no one else wanted to be involved in equipment and club fitting. And to be honest, at that point, it dawned on me what an opportunity. For the pool of talent to be that shallow. And I really loved equipment that much at that time.
You didn't have to be good at that point, right?
You literally just had to do it. You just had to do it. So, move forward, joined TaylorMade in 2004, worked for them on the demo scene and kind of worked my way up from tech rep to a fitting center manager to TMPL, and ultimately started working with more of their sort of teams. So the Scottish national team was a TaylorMade sort of team. I would work with them. So a couple of the guys on the Scottish national team had been in the university program down at Lynn University in Boca, and they had told a group from Canada that we work with this, really good young fitter on our stuff. These guys in Canada were looking to start a club fitting company. They're like, you may want to kind of connect with them, see if you'd be interested in joining you guys in the venture. That was what brought me to Canada in 2011. Loved it, moved over here on a 2-year work visa, renewed that 2-year work visa, and then had to make a decision in 2015. What do I do? So it was either move back to the UK or really kind of throw the anchor down in Canada and do something with it, which is where TXG was born at the end of 2015. That's when we started that, Mikey and I. And I think pretty much most people know the history from there. So, get into club fitting, obviously in Canada and the YouTube channel and the sort of club champion acquisition, and we're part of the bigger group now, global bigger group, and that's where we are today.
Let's just jump right into this. Is when you're fitting, easy fits versus very, very challenging fitting scenarios. Which ones are super easy for you and which ones are super hard, and kind of why?
I think, Chris, it's pretty easy when, so if you can get solid contact, you can pretty much make the ball and club kind of work in unison. I think when you start to get face to path relationship contradicting strike, and those start to fight. So it's not, they don't just have a consistent heel strike or a consistent toe strike. They may be out to in with an open face and have that kind of fade tendency, but they move from heel to toe, and you can't consolidate the relationship on strike. Those fits are really, really tricky, because then we want to get into some new clubs here, but I need to know that when you leave here, they're going to perform as we saw it in the Bay. If you're going to get on the course and do something a little bit different, or it's still going to be unpredictable, is really not. I can't predict your success outcome from this. So I think those are always the hardest ones. And then, to be honest, the flip reverse of that is the easiest ones. If you give me solid contact or consistent contact, then we can really work together and make some good stuff happen.
Is there a point where you think that actually is true, where like, yeah, buddy, I can't. There's nothing I can do for you.
There is a part, Tony, at which the inconsistencies override the technology. Inevitably, the movement of the golf club is very consistent. Angle of attack, club path, they generally are very consistent. What's inconsistent is face angle and strike point. In all honesty, it would be a really low percentage, and I'm talking like under 5%, under probably 2%, at which you can't get to the point where you can't override the variables and start to make the clubs help the golfer. So to that one, I'm not good enough to get fit. I think the retort to that is you're not good enough not to be fit. You're not good enough to wing it and walk into a big box store and just hope for the best that what you buy is going to get you the results you require. Most people are not good enough for that to happen.
What are the most challenging things just kind of within the industry? This can be individuals or others that you have to overcome as a fitter on a daily basis.
One of the most strange ones that we get would be a customer who comes in and they open the session with, I don't really believe in this club fitting, but my brother said that I should do it. So I'm here anyway. And you've got an hour with them, or even worse, if they've booked a full bag, you may have 3 or 4 hours with them, and they've basically blatantly told you they don't believe in it. Those ones are tough because they're looking for every reason to not believe what you're showing them. They stand up there with our, R5 driver and hit it 210, and you get them a G430 and change their life and, gain them 50 yards. Yeah, but that's the swing, isn't it? That's just that one shot. Well, let's hit a few more then. Yeah, but if and they're just looking for reasons why, it shouldn't work for them. Those are really, really difficult. When you're not bought in when you walk through the door, or even open to kind of the outcome, those are really, really challenging.
Do you still have people who are fighting biases like, well, like you've shown me, right? This is a top performing product, but I'm not sure I like this brand. Do you still
Yeah,
deal with any of that?
not really, not really, honestly. And again, another part of kind of having a bit of, I guess, of a reputation in the field. People come in and go, listen, I've looked forward to this for months or years or whatever it may be. Let's just get the best 14 clubs in my bag. So the ice is well and truly broken, and the fits I get. I hear it in the bays next to me, though. I hear it all the time in the bays next to me that the other guys have to deal with. And, I hear the struggle. So I don't deal with that nearly as much anymore, but it's still very rife within the bays.
Of the people that get fit, small percentage are going to actually get fit by you individually. Most people won't go to you. People that do get fit
Mhm.
are going to go to, maybe it's a club champion, maybe it's a true spec, maybe it's a variety, maybe it's a Golf Galaxy, PJ Superstore, whatever the case may be. What are the common, I guess, criticisms, and how do you as a fitting community overcome them? And this kind of gets to a question Tony and I were talking about. Like, one of the objections I hear is, it's so expensive, that I look and go, it's not worth the money. don't
Yeah.
spend it. You're throwing good money after bad, or you're just throwing something into the absolute highest profit margin bucket for that fitter, which may or may not be good for you, but I damn sure guarantee you they love it,
Mhm.
because that's making them a lot of cash and it's not a whole lot of work.
I mean, it comes down to the business model, doesn't it, Chris? Like at the end of the day, it's all down to the structure of the business model, and I think the companies that charge more because they need to charge more. That's their. It's not so much that they're making more money than they just have more things to offset within their business. So, I get it. Like I think clubs have gotten. I think they've gotten probably to a tipping point of what I thought was going to be a lot has become almost double that now. When I first moved to Canada, I think the thought of $1,000 driver Canadian used to blow my mind. And now you walk in, and to be honest, 16, $1,700 drivers are common.
Hmm.
That's unbelievable. That really is unbelievable. So I completely get it, but there's lots of great options out there. There's lots of ways to buy, and I hope that people buy through us, because then we can establish a relationship together, and ultimately down the line, if you have an issue, or there's something wrong with that club, that we're going to be your trusted source to fix it, or anything like that. But that price structure involved is what it is within the business model that we have. It's not. I genuinely mean this when I say it. It's not that a company like a Club Champion or a TrueSpec is making at the end of the day more profit than other companies because they charge what they charge. They just have more costs to offset, right? So that's just the nature of that's just the business structure.
I think it's fair to say, right? When you're going to a premium location, whether that's a standard club champion, I guess if you want to call it, or you're going to what was TXG and for the premium Ian Fraser experience, like
Mhm.
part of what you are paying for is that experience, right? So I think there's something to be said for that. I know, for example, what I do when I go to the OEMs, that's part of the fun, right? It's not the end product. It's the experience of getting fitted for a club. So I think there is premium value in that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, coming out the other end, what is a reasonable expectation to take away from it, right? Like I got the experience, but as
Mhm.
part of the experience, I also have these clubs. So what is reasonable coming out of a fitting, both in terms of performance and then from your end of things, the ability to come back or say, hey, something isn't right. What can we do here to tune it, tweak it, whatever you want to call it?
I think the reasonable expectation is coming out of that these golf clubs will last you far longer. The life expectancy within this set is significantly higher than if you bought off the shelf. I think that's ultimately what it is. And within the cycle of change that a golfer goes through, whether that's a swing change, whether that's a physical change, that you are within the right sort of boundaries to be able to make adjustments, loft and lie adjustments, whatever that may be. And that's, for us, that's all free to have that for the lifespan that you have those golf clubs. You can have those adjusted at our stores. I can only speak for us, and every company does it slightly differently, but you can have those adjusted for free for as long as you have clubs purchased, by us. So I want your clubs to last the way golf clubs have performed now, probably 6 years. I do think the experience factor is meaningful, and I think the longevity and de-risking the purchase is meaningful as well. That you're not going to buy something and then 6 months down the line you can't hit it and you're stuck. That will never happen at a store that I certainly run. If you come back in 6 months and go, listen, I've really tried, I can't hit this thing. I'm either giving you your money back or I'm fitting you to something else. Okay, let's get into this new one. Let's try this shaft. Maybe that setting's a little bit better for me. Do you have data for me? Can you bring me Arcos data? Can we look at what happens? Maybe the environment of the fitting bay and the environment of the golf course are a little bit different, and you react slightly differently out there. Can we maybe fill that gap together and understand what that is?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because it's one of the thing I kind of hear you saying, and I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, and you'll totally tell me if I'm wrong. But for so many people, fitting or companies, fitting is an event
Mhm.
as opposed to a process,
Yeah.
and that process includes, because like I said, you're indoors, right? We're in
Yeah.
Canada for those right there, so and we know. I mean, yes, people do play golf on simulators, all that stuff, but golf is played outdoors on a course against your buddies, or maybe
Mhm.
it's in whatever that is. And so things can shift and change. But it sounds like what you're saying is, hey, we understand that fitting clubs is a process. It's not Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Then, well, see you later.
Mhm. Yeah. No, without a doubt. Like, I mean, we look at this. I mean, we had a young potential new employee in this morning, a new fitter, and we kind of try and explain. I never want somebody to think of coming in and coming out of any of our stores. You're kind
Right.
of in an infinite loop, right? So
Yep.
it's a constant service cycle of we're going to work with you all the time to make sure that
Mhm.
your golf equipment is completely optimized for you. And it comes back to the teaching model. A teacher, you ask any instructor, they don't like to give one-off lessons. I don't like to do one-off club fitting sessions. I want to see you multiple times a year. The people I have the most success with, especially the elite juniors, I probably see them 5 times a year, and we're always optimizing their setup, right? And
So
we want to make sure that they're just, for whatever part of the season, whatever their swing is looking like, ball flight, we're making subtle little tweaks.
how do you moderate the stuff where like people go, geez, is that worth it? Like, should I
Yeah.
pay for this? Where it's like, hey, it's a no brainer. Let's get you into
Mhm.
something that's a different length or live. We got to change that. Or, man, you are in the absolute wrong head. You think you should be playing a muscle back,
Mhm.
and you clearly shouldn't be. So let's do that. And then you start getting into things at the very other end, which I'm going to call like the shaft peering, exotic shaft part of the world, where
Mhm.
there's a lot of question, a lot of criticism, and a lot of kind of nebulous information floating around.
Mhm.
With those, how do you help guide people and go, hey, you know what? I don't know if that's worth it for you. If you think it is
Yeah.
and you want to pay for it, hey, it's your money. But
Mhm.
does this person really need the $400 upgrade shaft or not? How do you maybe talk people off that ledge when you know that's not right for them? Or you just go, you know what? I just don't see that benefit for you.
Yeah. I think it's established very early in the fit, Chris. I think if you establish what the client views as value at the very start, and then you cater the session to that. So some people will come in and say, I've got $800 and I need to start driving it better. Some will say I have an unlimited budget and I just want the best clubs that you can possibly fit me for. Let's go. There's no shaft in the wall, there's no head in the drawer that's off limits here. Let's just build me the best set that you possibly can. So ultimately determining what value looks like to the client at the very start is how I start every single session. So, we set expectations on what they want to gain from it, then we can go about delivering set to that kind of set of objectives. So, if somebody comes in and they don't want to go into the aftermarket shaft world, that is absolutely no problem. I'm still going to do my absolute best to fit them for the clubs that are going to improve their game. But they set the agenda for me, not the other way around. I'm not going to let someone walk out my bay and they got a $2,000 driver and they go, holy moly, that I see that driver on the shelf for $700. Why is it 2,000 at your store? I'll never let that happen because we've set the agenda together before the thing has even started. So there's no surprises when all is said and done. I can't do my job if at the end of it, they ultimately can't afford it, or there's a sort of pushback to it, or anything like that. That would be a failure on my part.
So with that, Ian, right, understanding that fitter is kind of this universal term, but obviously not all fitters are equal in their talents and abilities. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a guy who's, I guess, call it shopping locally, right? I'm looking for a fitter near me,
Mm-hmm.
not exactly sure what to be looking for. How can the average guy determine whether or not he's found a good fitter? Like before you spend the
That's a
money,
great.
like that's
That's a great question. That is a great question. I mean, again, what you guys do, and I think what we've tried to do, is set some standards for, you know, performance, or maybe what, being able to identify a charlatan out there in the field who's, out there, you know, peddling wrong information. Or, I mean, I hate to even say it, because but I've heard, and kind of know it does happen, adjusting settings potentially, even on launch monitors and
Yeah.
stuff like that, at whatever level, whether it's small box, big box, whatever. That just stuff just scares the life out of me. So I think by having an accessible platform like our YouTube channel, like your channel, like others that do great work in putting out information out there, you arm people with enough information to then navigate their way through the field and go, that's not right. I know that, a high launch shaft, is not going to be the what I need to invest $600 in, to make the low ball flight that I have, to change that. That's going to waste my money if we get into that. So we hopefully, we're all, collectively, you guys and what we do, educating enough people that they can navigate those waters. But it's really, really difficult, Tony. We're still not there yet, no doubt about that.
within everything you do, the
Mm-hmm.
technologies you have at your disposal today, the fitting carts, all of that. Is there anything that springs to mind where you're like, man, if I just had this thing, like what is the thing that doesn't exist yet, but is kind of in your head that like, man, if I could just do this, I could do that much better. Like,
Oh man, there's like a hybrid model of all these things that are available to you, whether it's gears, sport box, swing cat, all these different things. Um, there's a model at which, I believe, would give you so many more answers, so much more in terms of. I think the experience would be great, but having, if I go back to my TaylorMade days, TMPL days, when you put someone in the motion capture
yeah,
suit and had them hit balls, I always felt like that was really intrusive on the club fitting, because you started the 2 hour session with 1 hour on the motion capture system, and then you try to fit them, but you've just told them that the right elbow's up there and they don't get it to the right side, and all these things are wrong with their swing. But now I'm going to fit you. But what about my elbow and my knee and my leg? But it's just like, I wouldn't want people to know everything that I'm looking at. So if I've got 4 or 5 different screens and I'm looking at a sensor's edge grip pressure device that's telling me how much the right hand is influencing delivery versus the left hand, and I can separate those to go reduced taper versus increased taper versus oversized grip and undersized grip, right? I want to know all of these things that are going on simultaneously, model it out so I can get them all to talk to one another, and have this sort of, feedback to me that I go, well, clearly that's the one. I still think, I still believe there's a world in which every bay is started with a test session, and we're going to create baselines. So I want to look at how do you do with one length clubs, because I don't know if someone's going to do better with one length clubs versus variable length clubs, because I don't offer one length clubs in here. So I'll never know whether somebody needs that. How do I know if Jumbo Max is going to suit the player with a certain delivery? We don't fit people with Jumbo Max grips on there. So if I put, Chris came in and I said, okay, Chris, I'm going to give you a long club, a short club, upright, flat, all these different parameters, offset, no offset. And if I just basically tested you, if I done a
See what you
wide
do with it.
test on totally,
Yeah.
because club fitting lives in this safe space of, well, we think half-inch increments of the weight needs to go in terms of length progressions. We think loft needs to be 3 to 4 degrees. How do we know? Because we're not going to test you any other way. So in this other alternate view, I want to know how I can influence Chris's swing. Maybe I can change the one thing you've struggled with your whole life in terms of, your ball flight. And it's the grip size that completely influences how your cast and motion happens at the top, and that goes away. And we look at your kinematic sequence, and your chain improves exponentially. But I'll never know that unless I test all those things.
and that takes a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
Let's talk equipment stuff. You want to talk a little equipment stuff? Because you
I
see
love it.
a lot of equipment. We talk a lot
Yeah.
about equipment. I think, the reality is there's always people that will try to fit themselves, and
Hmm.
that's always going to be a challenge because there's things they'll get right, there's things they won't, but like I said, more often than not, it's you're buying lottery tickets and not always
Yeah.
particularly good ones. What stands out so far this year, particularly some of these more recent releases? We had Cali came out with new irons now. Obviously,
Mhm.
we have other stuff on the horizon. Titleist,
Callaway, PXG,
gee,
Titleist, Mizuno, right? Every like that's kind of what we've seen so far this fall.
Yeah.
Anything stand out?
Been a busy one, hasn't it? It really feels like it's been a busy fall sort of launch cycle. Well, I tell you what, when I opened the box and saw JPX 925, I looked at that and went, "Oh no, what have they done?" Because if we look at where JPX, and I read your article on JPX 925, Tony, and the kind of the journey of it from JPX, from the black and orange head that you had in that picture. Like if you look how that started, right, to where 923 went, it was a good looking club, wasn't it? It was pretty sleek looking. It was like color scheme was really pretty classy. So the silver and different stuff. And then I looked at the kind of the from the back certainly of 925, and I went, oh no, I think they've made a mistake here. Why does it look like that? And then I hit it and I went, wow, that's really really impressive. The individualization of the design per club. So when you hit a pitching wedge at 42 degrees now on the pitching
Yeah,
wedge on hot metal. When you hit that pitching wedge, and I hit it yesterday and it spun at 9,000 and it launched at probably 26, and it didn't go 148, it went 138 to, which is about what my Voke 46 degree does, 45, 46 degree. It didn't do anything, that was really scaring me. And then I hit a 4 iron that went at 110 feet and carried 220 yards. I went, holy, that was the easiest 4 iron I've ever hit in my life. I love to see that from these companies. So those I've absolutely loved. I think Callaway are doing some really really good work, and they obviously they peddle the AI face and that whole conversation. But I don't know when this podcast goes out, but we just tested, for example, the mini driver from TaylorMade and the mini driver from Callaway. And the biggest difference between those two is how good the face is on Callaway. Whether you're low, toe, or heel, the standard deviation on that spin and the ball speed is, I mean, multiples better than the TaylorMade head in terms of standard deviation. It's not even close. And that's what they're telling us. We're kind of okay. We're trying not to be force fed marketing jargon, but when you see it in a test head to head, you go, there's people doing really good work here. There really are
right.
onto something with these faces and making the consistency. You guys do such a great job of highlighting for the average consumer. Don't get sucked in to here's more performance, more technology, more yards, more this, more that. Be a little bit cautious in market and believe in the marketing from all these brands. And that's exactly right. But what to look at, if we use quad, you guys use quad, below the spin number or the launch number or the carry number, look at the little number under it, because that one means more than the big one above it.
yeah.
How often does it do it? That north, south, east, west dispersion. Like
Mhm.
we're trying to couple that all in and bunch that in. So Callaway are doing an incredible job with that certainly.
What else this year, either, both good and maybe underperforming, has stood out to you? This could be any club, any product category, any type of golfer. Like every year, there's some things that,
Mm,
like, I think of like a Ping G400 LST, where it's like
yeah,
everything kind of came together, and then maybe
unicorn.
it was just the market and the timing, and it was like, that's awesome. And then there's some
Yeah,
stuff that has just, maybe it looked better on paper or something and kind of flopped. What do you got for me in each
10
of those this year?
10K. this whole concept of 10,000, this it's like a mythical, number to hit now. Like I genuinely believe, like, you could go to 15K, 20K if it was legal, and it's not going to make it better than what you've got, which is what you should have, should I say. So, of all the variables that I believe are meaningful and important, I don't think that, I think, trying to word this correctly without offending anyone.
That's
What
okay. You can offend whoever you want.
I actually think that performance falls off a bit of a cliff the more you chase that. I think it's going in the wrong direction from a design perspective, in my opinion, if you start chasing MOI, because there's so many other things that have to suffer for your MOI to go up. And if you're fitted and you can match face, path, and strike, if you get those three things in alignment, you'll see much more performance from a head actually that's slightly less than 10,000 MOI, probably down in the sweet spot of around, north of 8, south of 9, low nines, in terms of combined MOI. So I think that's one that I don't love people chasing. I personally this year, the TaylorMade,
Mhm.
the QI 10 Max for us,
It's a miss, right?
it's a miss. It's a I
It was
think
a
it's a
miss.
clear miss. It's
Yeah.
slow, it's a bit spinny, and you dial someone in with a TSR3, with one of these other TSR2 or now GT and 3 and 2. But the one company I give it to, their props, because they've done it and they've not suffered on the back of it. It's just Ping, isn't it? I mean, Ping 10K they've done it and they've made it work when really I didn't think it was going to, because the difference between a G430 Max and a 10K is about, in MOI terms, probably 300, 400
Okay,
MOI.
it's minimal.
It's not
Hmm.
much. So the
No.
whole
Yeah, I
10K
think
story I didn't like.
I think what
Sorry,
gets
guys.
lost, in my opinion, with the 10 ping 10K is that take 10K out of it. Like that's not the reason why it flies straight. Like they did so much more with that driver than just hit an MOI number, right? It wasn't just MOI
Yeah,
MOI. It makes for a great story, but when we look at that, we're like, yeah, they made it fly straight, which a lot of that's matching your bulge and roll radii with the target player and delivery and all of that kind of thing. So much more than just
100%.
MOI, and I think that's where they hit and maybe some others missed.
Yeah, without
100%,
a
Tony.
doubt. Without
Couldn't
a doubt.
agree more
Anything
with
else?
that. I think Titleist with T series are so covered. That 150 is so good. It covers so many golfers in the T150. Your better players, to be honest, they come and ask for T100 now. It's like an expectation that if you're a high level player and you're really high quality, but you want some technology, T100 is sort of the way to go. I think Ping with I230, I530 are both two incredibly good irons. And, like I said, with I think Hot Metal, the new 925 Hot Metal series, is going to really, really be good for a lot of people out there. As was, to be honest, 243 and 245. I think they've been great irons for people. I play 243s right now. I tried 223s, for a little bit, and they didn't work for me at all.
Hmm,
There was a big delta between how well and how far I hit 7 to 4, and how poorly and short I hit 8 to wedge. So
interesting.
at the
Interesting.
point at which, and I think this is probably something worth us talking about maybe at another time, but I do think there's a real issue with design the way it's going. There is a cliff that falls off when you get to a certain loft on the iron. So you no longer activate the technology inside the head. You need a certain amount of energy going into the golf ball or within the collision to unlock the technology that's in the club. And I think when you've got a wedge and a nine, it's such a deflected strike that you're really not unlocking the technology that's within that head. So I think that's an issue that companies are having now.
We see that a lot too, right? That point of transition in almost every set where you get like the tech rich long and middle irons that have
Yeah.
all the whatever the big technology is loaded with tungsten, all that stuff, and then you get to that transition typically around the 8 iron. In a lot of cases,
Mhm.
most if not all of that technology quietly disappears because, as you said, right, you're not getting that serious collision. You're getting that glancing blow, and you almost don't need it, and then you start to run into, in some cases, gapping issues and everything that goes with it.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, where's it all going to end up? Because if you continue to make clubs longer and find ways to make it longer, you continue to create a bigger problem in terms of the
Right,
spacing. So I think what used to be
right.
maybe seen as like 10-yard gap-ins and 12-yard gap-ins, I think because of how far that 7 to 4 part of your bag goes, it has to be that those gaps increase now. Because the 4 iron for a lot of people used to go 200. Now, I'm hitting hot metal yesterday and flying at 230, 235. And I'm looking at Mikey going, what is this? Like, that used to be my 5 wood numbers. And now I've got 4 iron flying that far.
Most fitting clubs today, 7 irons, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
companies use 6 irons, but mostly seven. And you're like, well, a four in one set maybe doesn't fit the same guy that the seven fits. And then, like you said, you get into the higher lofted stuff. Sometimes those are different still. So is it a serious problem that you really, in many cases, dealing with one club in a set to fit eight or 7 or 8 clubs these days?
It is, Tony. It is because, as much as we would love it, the delivery of the player to be consistent and progress. So, the shorter club delivers a steeper blow because of the more vertical nature of the setup with that golf club. So, angle of attack changes. And as length progresses, we incrementally move in the correct sort of way, the correct journey towards becoming shallower as we move towards that longer golf club. That doesn't always work with people. So as you
Right.
maybe as the speed comes into
Right.
their game, and they swing a 4 iron so differently than they swing a wedge, and the over the top comes in a little bit because that's their way they
No.
apply speed. I know, shocking, but that's the way they do it. But so
That's how Chris does it, not me.
Yeah.
he's owning it. Chris is owning it. But I just
Yeah.
think from that standpoint, like the individualization of the tech features within the club, it's combo sets has exploded because of that exact thing. The needs are very different at one end of the bag from the other. So again, as we move into this new phase of club fitting, I probably think that's probably has to be addressed. I think that's got to be
The more
part of it.
right. You mentioned combo sets, and like as a fitter, how do you know kind of where that point is, that transition where, all right, I need to, as I move to the long iron, something bigger, more forgiving, faster, whatever it happens to be. How do you know
Mhm.
precisely where that is if you don't have that in the demo card, right?
It's their impact tendencies that will give that away. So if you're that handle leaner, a little bit of a steep handle leaner, you know that they're probably really good. And you'll ask a bunch of sort of leading questions at the start, right? What conditions do you like to play in? Do you struggle to hold greens? So you start to build up that picture, and then obviously the discovery process within. I break all my fittings down in terms of an iron fit is 1 to 12 shots. Sorry, 1 to 8 shots with their club, 9 to probably 16 with starting to discover a little bit about like what I can do to influence it. And then beyond that, start to really dial it in and show them results beyond that. So there's kind of a sequence to that will show, how they change when I give them longer or lighter, how they'll change if I give them shorter and heavier. And then at that point, where they're going to start to struggle based on how you've moved their delivery during that kind of fitting process.
Does it ever get weird as the YouTube expert fitter guy when you have to sit down with an OEM fitter and he's got to fit you for clubs?
It can. It definitely can. Yeah, no doubt about it. I'll say the one relationship that I've established and that I really value is with JJ Van Wiesenbeck from Titleist. So every
I
time
love
I go out
JJ.
and get fit for irons or woods or whatever, he's on site and kind of we do that stuff. So like it's probably genuinely the only time I don't want to call it relax, but that I don't play the role of fit. Like I can be the player, and when he and I are together, and I genuinely can say I don't have that relationship any other place I go. That's the one place I can relax, and it's probably why we typically have a bunch of Titleist in our bags, and I've woods, wedges, putter. I was in T150 irons. I'm now playing Mizuno's, but I really trust him when it comes to and he kind of keeps up with the content, so he knows what I'm interested in and maybe what shafts I'm playing and stuff like that. So that's the one place I can go that I can relax and be a player.
You ever had a situation where you're shaking your head and you're like,
yes,
that's not it, man.
Yes,
That's not it.
That's not. We're in the wrong direction right now. Let's do this, this, and this, and things will start getting better quickly.
I love it. Like I said, I mean, there are hundreds of topics, and we'll absolutely need to do this several more times. There's I got 1,000 more questions and things, and as the world of fitting evolves, I think there's such a value in this industry and tapping into each other's expertises, right? And trying to give people good information, and no doubt people have questions. So I highly encourage people, post them. Let us know what your questions are. We'll either answer them or we won't. Those are the two options. Like, those are the two things. Well, it's one or the other. But we're going to finish up with a little speed round here. We got 5 questions for you, Ian. I'm going to ask the first 2, and then Tony's going to ask the last 3.
Is that how we're doing it? Okay.
Are you good with that?
I'm fine with it. Ian,
okay.
You good?
Ian, you good?
We're good.
All right, here we go. Speed round. Question number 1. The best driver of 2024?
GT3.
Oh, great.
Ooh, I love it. Question number 2. What's the best show on TV or your local streaming service right now?
It was Tour de France, the Netflix documentary Tour de France. Loved it. Never knew anything about cycling. Always a mystery to me. Never made any sense. Watched that, and I'm absolutely hooked on the sport now.
Right, here we go. Worst golf product you've ever come across?
Oh man, worst ever. Callaway C4 driver.
Fair.
It's fair.
Ian Fraser's favorite club to fit?
Wedges.
Oh, love that answer.
Right after Tony's heart.
Yeah.
Tony's feeling it.
Last one. Should fitting be free?